Chapter 801. Just then, Wilbur turned to look at the Xanders. Yolanda and her sons trembled uncontrollably. They lowered their heads and did not dare to look at Wilbur at all. Jean walked up then, falling to his knees. "Thank you for saving my life, sir. I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to. You gave me that crown in return for my help. We don't owe each other anything," said Wilbur calmly. Jean felt like the crown was nothing compared to the safety and lives of his family, even if it was a family treasure. He said, "I still have $50 million in my savings. Could you give me your account number? I'll send it over." Wilbur could not help but sigh. Xander Corp was worth billions of dollars, but Jean, one of the heirs to the company, only had $50 million in his savings. It was clear just how much he was ostracized by his family. Wilbur looked over at Yolanda, Jameson, and Jeffrey. "None of the three of you can even compare to Jean. You, Yolanda, have always favored your two older sons. What were the both of them doing after Jace fell sick?" Wilbur paused for a bit before going on. "They were wrapped up in fighting over power to control the company, going as far as hiring peak ambience level experts to get them what they wanted by force. They were at each other's throats and you were blind to all of it. Jean was the only person trying to think of a way to solve your family crisis, and not only did you ignore his deeds, but you thought he was a piece of garbage who was trying to steal from the family." Wilbur glanced at Yolanda and the rest. All three of them lowered their heads in shame, not daring to utter another word. "From the way I see it, Jean's the only one out of all of you who's able to carry on the legacy of Xander Corp. He is patient, humble, and kind, on top of many other good qualities, none of which I see in any of you. I'll let you think about that yourself." Following that, Wilbur raised a hand and tossed a bone flute into his demiplane. He then looked at Santino, who scrambled to bow. Wilbur gave it some thought and waved a hand at him, gesturing him to come over. Santino walked over, confused. Wilbur said, "Seeing as how loyal you were even in the face of death, I'll help you out one more time." Then, in plain sight, Wilbur shifted Santino's death curse onto himself. To tell the truth, Wilbur would have never dared to do something like this in the past. However, ever since he gained more insight into his deathly powers, curses like this were hardly a threat to him anymore. Upon finishing the shift, Wilbur turned to leave. Tears welled up in Santino's eyes. He fell to his knees, bowing over and over again. The rest of the Xanders looked at each other. At last, their gaze fell upon Jean. "I'm sorry, Jean. It's my fault," Yolanda said feebly. "I've been a terrible brother to you." "So have I. We shouldn't have treated you like this." Jean teared up at once. That was the first time in years that Jean had heard his family speak to him like this. He smiled gently, looking after Wilbur's retreating figure. "It's all right. I'm happy that we're safe. But I think I'm going to leave, in search of something else." Over at Sea Lake Island, Wilbur and Eileen were strolling along the lake. "I think we should be honest with each other," Eileen said. Wilbur. Eileen nodded. "I think so too. Can you tell me why you chose to stay here?" "Because you really look like the two people whom I know." "Really? Who?" "The two founders of the Kiwanis Club." Wilbur's head jerked up to stare at Eileen, his pupils glowing.